Hello and welcome back to yet another review for The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. Another week, another episode, and we are already in the back half, episode 4 of 6. And I have to say, this episode's pretty good. However, it is not with its flaws. I say the first part of this episode has the same issue as the last episode, and it is a bit pointless. And especially with this episode, it feels like it only exists for a clickbaity part of the trailer. And with the start of this episode, we see Daryl in this underground bed. He sees Laurent. Laurent's getting swarmed by walkers. He prays and the walkers leave him alone. You see Daryl looking shocked, like we saw in the trailer. That's all a dream sequence, it seems like. Or it's maybe something shot out of sequence. It was a bit confusing what exactly this is, but Daryl wakes up in the water. He kills a walker and then bam, intro. I just felt like wasted potential, and I say a lot of this episode doesn't live up to the hype that I thought it would. It is still a very entertaining and enjoyable episode, and I would have to say the pacing in this episode is way better than the last episode. I felt the last episode was too much talking, too slow at points. This episode feels more in the pocket. It's about the same length, but it's paced well. It's just there are parts of this episode which don't work as they felt like they should. The plot of this episode is very simple, and it's about Daryl and Isabelle going off to try and find Laurent, and then when they find him at the Eiffel Tower, they get a fight scene, and then he gets captured, and the rest of the episode is about trying to save Laurent from his father, Quinn. And it's very entertaining. I do have to say, I really do like the language. It's very noticeable in this episode where you have Daryl dropping F-bombs here, and here. And I'm really happy The Walking Dead no longer has that random limitation that a lot of American TV gets. And it's very weird saying that you have Game of Thrones able to just drop worse words than the F word. So I'm very happy that aspect, the writing is better. The dialogue is way better in the spin-offs. And it's just so much better than no longer dealing with that weird American thing where you're not allowed to say these words on TV, but you can show a man's head being caved in. So that's a big win. Some highlights in this episode have to be the battle, the little kind of walker fight at the Eiffel Tower. I felt like you could have done more of the Eiffel Tower, but I'm happy we did get a shot with them underneath the Eiffel Tower fighting, and there was a cool torture scene. You see Daryl go full on Trevor Phillips, and I just really like that he goes on for this entire story being like, I knew this guy, and then later on Isabelle asks about it and he's like, yeah, I just made that all up. I just thought that was just very funny, and we get to see more of Daryl's personality. I really do like the take on Daryl that we have in Daryl Dixon. It's slightly different to the Daryl we had in The Walking Dead, but I like it. I like what they're doing with Daryl. Like, in these first 4 episodes, we are really seeing this new side of Daryl, and to me, it just really works. I know some people might not like it. It is not the exact same Daryl we left at the end of episode 24 of season 11. This is a different Daryl, and I'm all for it. It really does work. Some more massive positives about this episode are the pacing. I've already mentioned that, but I want to say it again. It does really work. And I have to say, I really love the music and the sets. The way this show is presented, the cinematography is amazing. I absolutely love the way this show looks. I feel like it does fall down at some parts here and there. There was a weird fight scene near the end, I do have to say. You had this main group distracting everyone at the nightclub, and you had Daryl sneaking through the back. And then you have Quinn walking to the front being like, oh no, we gotta run back, and then he runs into Daryl, and then you get a fight between Quinn and Daryl. And what really annoys me is that it's another moment like in episode 3 where Daryl is about to kill off one of the villains, and then some bull thing comes up. Like in last episode it was the shooters. This episode he looks at Laurent and is like, nah, I can't really kill this in front of this kid, so he just kind of runs away, and that causes a whole new problem. And I feel like the writing is just really weak when it comes to these villains-heroes conflict, because they always make Daryl win, and then they have to come up with some convoluted reason why Daryl can't take out the villain. I just think it's really, really dumb. If you want them to have this moment where they clash, have Daryl barely escape. I don't mind if he wins against Quinn, but the fight with Codron, Daryl should have maybe lost the fight in episode 3, and he got away barely, because we've now had 2 fights with Codron and Daryl's won basically both of them, and That makes Codron look less like a threat. And now this one, it's Daryl wins this fight, and then he just causes a whole new problem. He's like, nah, I really can't kill the villain. It's not episode 6 yet. And this runs into the problem when they get to the canals. They're about to get on the boat, and Isabelle's like, nah, I gotta stay to deal with Quinn. You know, the guy that you could have killed and just got rid of this entire problem, so I could have come with you. I gotta stay. And it's just this absolute dumb reason. I tried to understand it, but I just really couldn't. Why couldn't she go with him? And the worst bit is, it doesn't work, because we know that Quinn's going to be chasing down Daryl with Isabelle anyway, so what was the point? And it just felt like the writing was like, we need to write Isabelle away from the group, so Daryl will be alone with Laurent, so they can bond like Joel and Ellie. That was really all I was thinking at that point. I'm like, okay, you're just forcing Isabelle away, so you can have that random Daryl and child moment to bond. And that was the weakest part of this entire episode. I dare say, there's also some weird moments in this episode. One, I feel like they definitely need to do more of Genet, because we are 4 episodes in. She's the big villain. There's 3 big villains, or 2 big factions after Daryl. And we know very little about Genet. We have Laurent set up quite nicely. I wish we had a bit more development of him past episode 1. But we have Genet, and all we know is that she's a leader of this faction, and she's trying to make super walkers. That's it. Hopefully episode 5 sheds some more light on her, because now she's aware of Laurent, she's now on the trail of Laurent. I want to know more about her, and I feel like this episode should have done a bit more. And I do have to mention, Sylvie disappoints me. If this episode feels like the last time we'll see Sylvie, because Sylvie talks to Isabelle and she's like, I want to stay in Paris. I want to stay with this group and help them rebuild. And I just felt to myself, wow, you were pointless, Sylvie. Why were you in this? We have 4 episodes of Sylvie in, and if you removed her from the plot, the story would be impacted 0. She has no impact on the story. She was just there to be an extra character, and I'd rather she died than kind of being in the show and then just disappearing. I just feel Sylvie is just massive wasted potential, and Sylvie does mention something weird to Isabelle, and that is that she was hinting at maybe Daryl and Isabelle will have a relationship. I really hope those two do not get together, because it just doesn't feel earned yet, because Sylvie was like, oh, do you have feelings for Daryl, something like that, because she was talking about having feelings for another man, and I didn't like that. I really hope they don't get together, because Daryl and Connie was the perfect couple. And no one had guts to do that. I really am disappointed that Angela Kang never gave Daryl and Connie a thing. And now you're introducing this random girl, Isabelle, and you're like, okay, I'm going to turn Daryl and this nun into a thing. I really, really just hope they just become best friends. I do not want them to have a relationship. Some people, I'd like to know down below, are you up for Isabelle and Daryl being a couple? Or do you not like the idea like me and just wish Daryl and Connie got together on The Walking Dead? Let's move on to my 1-sentence/1-word overall review. And I do have to say, I am shocked by this episode, because parts of this episode do underwhelm me, but other parts are great, and this episode is very enjoyable throughout the entire thing. I'll have to give this just say it's a great episode and give it an 8 out of 10. It is about the same quality as episode 3, but it's not as good as episode 1 and 2. They are definitely my favourites. Episode 5 looks great, and by the end of this episode, it does start to feel like The Last of Us again, with just Daryl and Laurent on the road again, and you could see episode 3 and 4 as the Pittsburgh/Kansas City part of The Last of Us story. In a way, that's how you could really see it. But what did you think of this episode? Please tell me down below. Personally, I think this is a great episode and give it an 8 out of 10. It's enjoyable, and I do definitely recommend, if you haven't watched Daryl Dixon already, go and watch this show. Do not sleep on it. It is definitely way better than the last few seasons of The Walking Dead. But this is it for me today, so goodbye, peace out, and I'll see you in my next video.